historic buildings under the adaptive reuse do not have a parking requirement. And there's actually quite a bit of parking. You just have to manage it where it's shared parking. And parking needs to be utilized in sort of different shifts. So it's anticipated that this would help activate Broadway at night. And if you go to Broadway now, it's just completely abandoned and dead. So what we want to do is keep it equally busy during the day, also activate the upstairs, which is abandoned, and activate it in the evenings and weekends and nights where you don't have it. So it sort of brings a lot more people in, but it brings them in different shifts that aren't presently there.
Yeah. A couple other financing questions. What kind of response have you gotten from some of the major players in town, like LA Live and some of these big developers, as far as, I mean, have you got any real commitments yet to providing financing? And then how are you being financed right now?
Well, we're being financed right now by donations, primarily from our property owners and other supportive stakeholders in downtown that want to see it happen. Some philanthropic and some, obviously with a potential benefit from it. And a lot of those big property owners are on our board. So that nobody's committed to anything yet. I think that everybody understands the concept and they agree that to some level it makes sense to invest in it. We're just all trying to figure out what that level is. Is it going to be a nominal level, or is it going to be something that's more significant? And that's really, we're having some real big meetings in the next couple months to figure a lot of that out, because first we had to go and figure out where it's, because that affects what this potential district, tax district might look like. You have to come up with a methodology and a lot of other things. So you had to do the background work. We've gotten that done now. So now the real conversations are starting to happen with them on, how much they're willing to do. Like I said, I think they're willing to do it at some level, most of them, but nobody's committed.
What about Portland and Seattle? Did they have a tax increment?
They had both. Well, Seattle didn't. Portland had both tax increment and an assessment district. They called it a LID, a local improvement district. Seattle had only an assessment tax district, which was 50% of the line. The other half came from local and federal sources. So no tax increment in Seattle. They did have tax increment in Portland.
CRAs.
CRA, that's right, Russ has reminded me, CRA has already committed $10 million to the project, and they've also given us money to date. They've been probably our biggest supporter so far financially to pay for a lot of our technical studies and otherwise with some commitments that they have. They've funded us probably about half $500,000 so far to date. So.
And to answer your question, in September there's a big fundraiser outreach event. Eli Grove, Tim Lawicki from AEG, and Rick Caruso are the three co-chairs.
First of all, about
hit me with
20 years ago, I had the joy of putting in a benefit assessment district that raised $130 million to build the first 4 red line stations. And the downtown property owners loved that so much, they went straight to the state legislature to make it exceedingly difficult to ever do that again. Don't thank me. 2 questions. First one is on rail cars. What are you looking at, or have you made your mind up yet? You're looking at a modern streetcar like the Skoda? Are you looking at retro, like rebuilding PCCs, or some new retro? What are you looking at? And second, what are you looking at as an actual operating speed?
So the car is most likely going to be a modern car. So like the Skoda or some iteration of that, a modern car. It's a tough decision because I think there certainly is a nostalgia back to some of the old, certainly the LA streetcars and the yellow and the red cars and others. But I think from a transportation perspective, the new modern car is just a better vehicle. It's low floor, it's quieter, it has a lot more of the technology, it has things like that. So I think our preference is to go with a modern car. The manufacturer, we obviously have no idea yet. That doesn't mean we won't do some of the historic cars or some type of a replica car. Maybe it's one of them runs at all times, or maybe you do it on the weekends or during special events or something like that. I think we all recognize that would be a very nice and appropriate thing to do. But the majority of the cars in the system will be a modern one. Second question was
operating speed.
Oh, the speed. The speed on a streetcar is a lot less than, it stops a lot. I mean, that's the purpose of it. It doesn't stop every block, but it doesn't go for several blocks with, you know, lights coming down and barricades that come out like a light rail does. So again, it all depends upon traffic. It runs with traffic, so you can guesstimate it anywhere from 10 to 20 miles an hour is probably a good range, somewhere along those lines. This side of the room.
My main concern is about the ADA, and if you build it in an island, like in an island, like they do it on the Gold Line, then you will have people coming in, worship people who want to ride on the stroller, people who want to ride on the cane, people who want to ride on different elements. I think I have been very lucky to want to do the display show that you guys did up in Broadway.
Yeah, we talked.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I like the idea of having, instead of the island, having it on the
Side of the street, right?
on the side of the street. That you do in Portland, probably Portland have the same thing. And that would be the city. Are you guys going to do that?
Well, so it's a great question. That the streetcars, the low floor modern streetcars, fully ADA accessible. Whether you do it in the center island or not, I think you have to make those provisions, and then you have to get up to the island. That being said, I think we don't know yet. I mean, we have to study the traffic and the environmental and go through all those. But I think, and you have to figure out what the utilities are in the street. So there's a lot of particulars that determine if you go center running with an island with those stops, or you go to the side of the street. I mean, my guess is a lot of them will be on the side of the street, just simply for the cost and the ease of use. It's a lot easier to have it run on the side of the street like a bus, and then you can just have the ramp come out, you can roll on and off from the sidewalk. Is definitely a great way to go. So I think that's where we're leaning, but obviously if you have major utilities that are on the side of the street in a particular area, and it's just going to cost you millions of dollars to relocate those, there may be areas where you need to run it out to the center of the street at a certain particular time, or it may make sense for a given stop or a location for it to be in the center of the street to serve two big, contingencies on either side or something like that. So it's all up for design right now. But we hear you, and I totally agree.
One comment I'll add. When we went to Portland, what we noticed is they actually did bump outs where you keep the existing lane, and that, instead of that being a travel lane, that becomes a parking lane. And especially on Broadway, none of the businesses have alley access. So that becomes a protected place for loading, unloading, gives you much wider streets. You have real trees that you can plant and make it a pedestrian environment. And then you bump out another lane, and that's how the streetcar comes along. Those can also be used for buses. What we saw in Portland is literally the doors open. The platform is 6 inches off the regular curb, so it's a very short platform. We had people with bicycles and strollers just walking right on. It's very easy. Almost when you sit in the car, 80% of your experience is all glass. So it's almost like the sidewalk is moving and you're staying still. So it became very, very user-friendly. It was like moving escalators almost at the airport, where you're on these platforms and the world sort of goes by. So it makes it very, very easy to get in, get out. What you also saw in Portland is they had stations that had a lot of amenities. You could look at the station and see, next streetcar, 6 minutes. So you could walk and get a cup of coffee, you could get a newspaper. It integrated very easily into how you got around downtown. In other parts of downtown that are not Broadway, because Broadway has the utility issues, but Broadway also used to have the streetcars. In South Park and the other places, that's going to be a different kind of challenge, because you don't want to get to the point that you can't have a streetcar over the sewer system. You can't have a streetcar over the utilities, and then to get to the utilities, you have to dig up the streetcar.
Okay.
We had another question over here. Yeah, go ahead.
Ken.
Go ahead.
I grew up with the streetcars here like Bob was talking about, and this is the first time I've been to several different meetings, reports. You guys had one at Trans-Africa some months ago, of eventually going back to Union Station. You mentioned Union Station. Eventually, you didn't